Good evening. CovertGo hot tub hair. Where'd my music go? Oh, you hear it. I know why. There we go. You guys could hear it. I could not. And that's because I was recording earlier today and I switched my music channel with the Discord channel. So when I'm talking to somebody else, I can turn them up and down. You can see I use a GoXLR program for some behind the scenes. CovertGo chill. Hey guys, how you been? I've been so exhausted lately. I haven't been able to make these evening videos. I've just been passing out, which, you know what? If I'm that tired, I should just do. But I do miss these. They're very fun. Update. I have worked out every day since. I have no idea how many days it's been. When was the last time I recorded one of these? It must have been Thursday, right? Maybe it was Friday? What did I do Friday night? Maybe it was Friday night. I think it was Friday night. Yeah, for the weekend I did the roller derby tournament. So that's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and tonight is... Oh, and Tuesday, and tonight is Wednesday, so that's 4 days. So we're on 932 days of the streak. I have to remath this. We're on 27 days of working out, almost a month. Insane. All right. Good habits. Good habits. Making videos, staying healthy. Holy cow. Anyway, that's the little update. What the heck are we doing tonight? Are you already bored to tears? Tonight you're going to get a behind the scenes on the worst possible Commander show, and specifically the new style of show we've been doing that I call the championships, the planar championships. By the time this comes out tomorrow, you'll get to see the Zendikar championship, and the Kamigawa championship has already been released. These are not what our show is usually about when picking out themes and what we do on the worst possible Commander show. Usually we are showcasing new cards, so a lot of the theme is typically, hey, new set, here's cards from new set in Commander. The other theme we like to do is just whatever, floats the boat of the player. So if Ben plays his decks, Blake plays his decks, they build their own decks. But the Player Championship was something different that I came up with, which was pitting the commanders that are from the same plane against each other. And how we pick the commanders that get represented in this game is not the choice of the player, so to speak. I use good old-fashioned EDH rec for popularity, and we just go through the top commanders until we find 4, and we'll call it the top 4 from each plane. So we're doing Strixhaven. Next month is back to school. By the time you watch the episode, it'll have been filmed in August but released in September. The theme is back to school, so we're going to Strixhaven, and one of the top commanders is Dina. I've already worked on that deck, and there are a few others, but I'm just showing you how we find our commanders. We just go down the list and look for the ones from the plane that Strixhaven is on, which has a name, Arcavios? Something like that. Anyway, the one that we're on tonight is Adrix and Nev, Twincasters, rank 139 in popularity, but one of the highest from Strixhaven. So what I've done is you go into EDH Rec, you click here, and whereas usually a Commander show is about showcasing the creativity of the players, this is more about showcasing the most popular commanders with builds akin to their most popular builds for the most part. So I click on this average deck button, I go click export, I click Mox Field, I create the deck, and I've already done this stuff. I'm just showing you where it comes from. And then over here, I've got the average, so to speak, Adrix and Nev Twincasters deck. And if that was all there was to it, there wouldn't be much of a video to make tonight. But it is not, because First, I export the average deck to make sure we have all the bangers that the fans would want to see for the deck, but then I do go through and we make adjustments. So some of the bangers do get cut to try to make a more balanced deck and a deck that's more interesting for a show, because a show's commander deck is different from the local game store commander deck in a couple of ways. We want to showcase some new and creative cards. We also want to be interactive, so we need to sneak more interaction into these decks, and also we can't get mana screwed on the show. These decks have a history usually of not having enough lands. 36 is not bad though. They also have a history, like these average decks normally don't have enough interaction either. We also have to make sure that they're not dramatically unbalanced. We want them powerful, but we still want them commander thematic, not CEDH. So Adrix and Nev Twincasters, if you haven't seen it, is really fun. It's 2 and a blue and a green for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard with Ward 2. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. So it's like a Mondrak Glory Dominus, which is of course in mono white, but getting access to green and blue, much better slate of colors, is a very good thing. The ward is a very good thing. In general, a little bit of doubling season style action, or more appropriately parallel lives in the command zone, is a very powerful thing. So we're going to be making tokens, and specifically we want to make tokens of various creatures, not just spawn tokens or spider tokens, although I think we'll do a good amount of that. But if we can make powerful copies of creatures as tokens, that's how the deck really starts to sing. So right away, a card, we're just going to start adding cards that I like. Nexus of Becoming is becoming one of my favorite cards. It's in the big score, so not a lot of people have played it or seen it. And this says at the beginning of combat on your turn, draw a card. Love it already. Then you may exile an artifact or a creature card from your hand. If you do, create a 3/3 Golem artifact creature that is a copy of it. This is amazing because, of course, you're going to make double of those with Adrix and Nev. But I use this in so many decks. The new Squirrel Commander, Hazel, of the Root Bloom, like, makes copies of creature tokens. Well, this makes multiple creature tokens, so the more of this type of thing we can make, and then make more of them, and then make more of them, the better we're going to be. This also means that we're going to want to really lean into playing creatures to achieve goals that normally we would use in sorceries and artifacts to achieve, such as ramp. You know, we would rather have our ramp come off a creature than off a card like Cultivate. And there are a few new cards that do that, and old ones. Wood Elves is an example of an old card that will do that and fetch us a forest. But there's also a new card, and it's a frog. And I don't remember the name of it, but I know the card is in Bloomburrow, and I know it's green. But it hits non-basic lands too, which is what makes it a really interesting choice for the deck. Where is it? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? You crazy card. It's in here somewhere. I think I'll know it when I see it. I do this a lot. I can't remember the names of all these cards, but I know what set they're in, and I dig them up. Cliff Top Lookout. There you are. All right. So that is a frog that when it enters, you're going to reveal cards from the top of your library to reveal a land and put it on the battlefield tapped. It can be non-basic, which is awesome. We also want our artifact, enchantment, and even creature interaction. We want all of it, if possible. We want all of it to be creatures wherever it can be, so that we can make token copies of them to get more effects. So Reclamation Sage is a very good one. Let's get that in there. And Acidic Slime, I think. It's another bit of artifact and enchantment and even land interaction that we can copy, so that's pretty handy. And then as far as creature interaction, I kind of want a Volatile Stormdrake, but copying the opponent's things isn't usually an option. Anyway, this is a new card, right? Energy card that can gain control of opponents' things, just steal their stuff. Could also add Gilded Drake, but that's expensive and hasn't been printed in a long time. I like to keep the printings new or close to new, stuff that's actually been reprinted, so that's not completely just out of left field all the time. And let's see, we'll just try to think. I want Bane of Progress. In general, I want sweepers. More huge battlefield effects, right? That do all kinds of big things. Is there like other creatures that when they enter return everything to owner's hand? Usually like Cyclone Summoner you have to cast, right? So that's a bit of a problem and not really what we're looking for. But of course we run the classics. So like this doesn't have a Cyclonic Rift. There's a reason it goes in all these decks, is because you just can't really replace that effect. Azura's Predation is a sweeper effect though that can make the cut, making a whole bunch of beasties, 4/4 beasties. It's absolutely solid. What else? There's the new raccoon that you can gift with, right? That's in Bloomburrow. Where is that? And that would be a good copyable Reclamation Sage type effect. Sharpshoot. It's Grap Shooter, and it is when it enters. That's pretty cool. These decks, average decks, do a good job of including new cards a good amount of the time, but you still have to be sure you get it. So Season of Weaving makes choose an artifact or creature you control, create a token that's a copy of it, while also coming with a bit of a sweeper effect. Octomancer is another good one, so, and for the common good. So you do want to make sure you get those in if you have them, because new cards are fun. Octomancer, yeah, and for common good. So let's get more of those token makers in there. Now we do want to up our interaction, and my favorite trick to doing that is to run MDFCs wherever I can that replace lands. So like Sink into Stupor wasn't in this deck, and that takes up a land spot, so that's a really good addition. There are other things that kind of fit that criteria, not as many in green and blue, but there's the fight one, Bridgeworks, something Bridgeworks Battle. Yep, that is basically a fight spell attached to a land, and there that is. So we add those wherever we can. And then you want to attach things to creatures like we did with the Drake, like we did with the artifact enchantment removal. There should also probably be like some bounce that we can copy. So Aether Channeler is one of my favorites for that, because it's so modal. It can make you birds. It can bounce the creatures. Very solid. And then you just kind of want to look for any other interaction. Rapid Hybridization, Beast Within, those are like some really good standbys. Eternal Witness is another example of a card we really want in this deck, because getting stuff back is great and copying it is great. And I'm kind of surprised it didn't make the cut here. But yeah, you want these cards, and then you want to make token copies of them. And there's a lot of ways to do that. Crackling Counterpart. There's the Second Harvest, which makes more tokens. Same with Double Major. But like Theoretical Duplication, when it enters, create a token that's a copy of that creature. C Double makes a token copy. There's some instance too, right? Quasi Duplicate, Quantum Misalignment, Rite of Replication, Replication Technique, Irenicus's Vile Duplication, etc., etc., etc. So pretty cool stuff. And now we can cut some of the things, like we can remove Kodama's Reach and Cultivate. Those used to be standbys. We can remove Rampant Growth, because basically we wanted the creature versions that do these types of things. And on that note, we can run Birds of Paradise, which I'm not sure why these decks don't run. And we can run, what's the Delighted Halfling, makes things uncounterable. But that's usually not a big deal in Casual Commander, where there's not a ton of counter spells. Instead, maybe you do want like Llanowar Elves, but Delighted Halfling is really good. The 1-mana mana dorks in general are very strong. And you can say, well, it's better to get lands because what if board wipes? But I like having a bit of a price in like a board wipe setting you back isn't the worst thing. And it means that there's a cost, and it makes decks just more explosive. All right, what do we got here? Fanatic of Ronus. Yeah, that's the new card, and it has Eternalized, so it makes a copy. So you can make multiple Fanatic of Ronus. I think that's a pretty sweet addition. Biovisionary. I don't think I even have one of these. So it's also kind of a cheap win the game alt win con, which you can do if you want to, but this deck should be able to attack for the win. Quite frankly, we're going to be making really wide battlefields, like absurdly wide battlefields. I do want to try Hydra Broodmaster. Hornet Queen is an old standby, and there's a new Fallout version of it that's looking very cool and would be fun to include in the deck. Coma for sure, Junk Winder for sure, Jahira for sure. I don't really want to worry about getting foods and card draw from these. I just want to focus on making more copies of some of these things. Reform was a reprint recently, but it's not like we have a lot of ways for this to die. I don't think it quite fits the deck, even though it does make token copies when it dies. It's not like we have sacrifice synergies or things like that. And the creature count is very high, so we're doing a good job with all that. Aggressive Biomancy, copies and fighting. Yes, absolutely. Curse of the Swine. It's an interesting card I haven't played in a while. Fits in this deck for sure, as you can exile some of your stuff to make multiple green boars. Doppelgang, absolutely. Actually, a lot of these cards are pretty good. Shamanic Revelation, I don't know if I'll need. You do want ways to draw a lot of cards, though. I'm not sure how we're going to actually end up doing on the card draw when all is said and done. Counterspell, out of there. Mana Drain, in there. Mana Drain is so much more explosive, which is exactly what you're looking for in both Commander content and Commander in general. Crows and Girip, we added Reclamation Sage. Growth Spiral, we added Llanowar Elves. Like, these are the cards that don't really match up. Second Harvest is sweet, though. Return of the Wild Speaker. It is curious. Like, I'm not sure if we're going to have large creatures on the board that we want to draw a bunch of cards with. It's more likely that we go wide, and we already have one of these effects in Garruk up here. So I think we want to be a little careful with that. It feels like going wide is more likely of the two things to actually happen. The Chrysalis gives tokens flying. That's not bad. The Chariot is awesome. Another way to make token copies of tokens. So is Helm of the Host. Mirror Box doesn't quite do it, as we already have some token copiers that ignore the legend rule. The Simic Signet is fine. We don't have the Talisman. I don't know. Do we need a Signet? I think that the curve a lot of people want in a deck like this is that you play turn 2 ramp, turn 3 Adrix and Nev, and then turn 4 here come the tokens. But I'm not sure that's the curve we really want anymore. Still, it's hard to argue with these ramp pieces. It's also hard to argue with like 3 visits and Nature's Lore, because those can really pull those things off. But I'd prefer the creatures. We can clone the creatures. We can do all kinds of things with the creatures. But I guess I'll keep the Signet for now. I don't like Awakening Zone. I find it really slow. It's just a card I'm not a fan of. I love this one. Extravagant Replication makes more copies at every turn. Doubling Season is Doubling Season. I'm not a fan of Paradox Zone, and I don't even think I have one, so that does affect things. But with the Eldraine like Enchanted Tales, I know I have some of these around. In fact, let's go with the baller versions. Yeah, nice. 38, including MDFCs. We can probably cut it down to 36 again. We already snuck in some interaction. I never really have time to activate a Blighted Woodland these days. Just doesn't happen. We're also missing a few lands. What's the new one? Hedge Maze, maybe? Yeah, that is the Surveil land. Not every deck is including those yet. We also have some landfall triggers, so we should run a Misty Rainforest if we don't have one. And should probably run a Fabled Passage and a Prismatic Vista. And then we can cut back on at least some of the basics. There we go. Move a count, put a counter on each creature that entered the battlefield this turn. I think the general behavior is to lean too much towards utility lands. I think the hideaway lands are pretty good in a lot of cases. It's like getting a free card, but I don't know if like you want to run like Oran Reef of the Vastwood most of the time, right? Especially in the championship, there's probably more powerful lands we can use that we never have to activate that just make more mana, like Ancient Tomb. You know, Ancient Tomb's a heck of a card. It should go in a ton of things. And Temple of False God, I'm generally vibe with. Simic Growth Chamber as a one of, I generally vibe with like one bounce land. That's totally fine. There is probably something I'm missing, but Dreamroot Cascade's right there, and that's a good one. There's no Snarl, and I don't like the Snarl, so I'm glad to see that's not there. I love the Pain Land. This mana base is just fine. Scrylands are okay. That said, Lumbering Falls I'm not so much into. We were talking about running Llanowar Elves. Maybe the tap lands aren't good. That's true. That's true. Maybe we do want to raise the basic land count, or at least the green count. Oh yeah, channel lands. We definitely want an Otawara and a Boseiju. We'd have them for the show. I know they're expensive, and you know, you don't have to run out and buy them right this second or anything, but they definitely make the cut because it's a way of sneaking more interaction into our mana base, much the way that we already did with Sink into Stupor. So we'll definitely take those. I'm trying to think if there's any other ways to get like a bounce spell or an artifact enchantment or any kind of interaction on a land. There's Jwari Disruption, but I've never actually Jwari Disrupted something in Commander. It's only been played as a land, and that's pretty disheartening. So yeah. All right, 35 lands. Usually that's okay with a good amount of ramp. So what do we have? We have 104 cards. How is the interaction, and do we need more? We have Rapid Hybridization, but no Pongify. We have Beast Within. That's okay. Sweeper wise, we have Rift, we have Perplexing Test, and we have the Predation. We also have kind of a effect all in Bane of Progress. If there's another like bounce all, or I don't know, especially attached to like a creature, I would play it, but not really. We do have some deterrence though in the likes of Hornet Queen. That's pretty good. Copy of target creature token that entered the battlefield this turn. I love the Gift an Octopus, and I kind of can't wait to try it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pumped to gift some Octopus out here. Anyway, Coiling Oracle. This just seems like a nice card, and copying it is nice, but on its own, it's just a very mediocre card. It's nice when it ramps, but when you're just drawing a card with it, you're not really achieving much. I'm gonna cut it. Not that big of a fan. All right, we're looking at 4 cards to cut. Season of Weaving is also kind of a board wipe, so we actually have a good amount of it. Good amount of it. As for card draw, you love a Shamanic Revelation. There's also just a ton of value in the creatures themselves. Nearly everything is like a body and something else, so I think the card draw is okay. Arasta of the Endless Web. I feel like every time I play this in our play group, it doesn't do very much, but I don't know if that's just bad luck coming around. The Progenitor, Mimic, the Fractal Bloom, like these things all fall into what the deck is trying to do. That said, I'm not sure I have one of these, and I'm not gonna have time to get it. I'm going to remove it. It's too much like Fractal Bloom, I think. And it also is just kind of a really expensive clone if the turn never comes back to you. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned, Ben is playing this deck. So I'm building for Ben, but he doesn't assemble them. Stokes assembles them. Whenever creature token deals damage to a player, draw a card. Nice. Making token copies of this is fun. What a monster. Honestly, I love a lot of the creature base here. It's a very delightful creature base. The Tireless Provisioner I like too, especially now that we added a few fetch lands. Not a ton, just a few. I'd like Trigon Predator generally in Commander. It doesn't quite fit with the theme. You'd much rather like a Reclamation Sage, right? And so that you copy it and you get the trigger right away. That said, I do think it's a good card for the format. I find it usually picks off 2 or 3 artifacts or enchantments if you play it any time in the first 3 turns. Still, in this deck, I think we want the things with the ETBs, like the Raccoon Archer here. So I'm going to cut it, even though, you know, I do like it. Aggressive Biomancy is pretty expensive, but cool. And it's a new card, so I really want to play it. And these are all really like serving our theme well, quite well. Quite well. Another thing I don't know if, a thing I'm not sure we're doing is making enough mana, and it would help if we could copy things that tap for a lot of mana. Like Bloom Tender is a 2 mana creature that taps for 2 in this deck. That's better than a lot of things. Like, how is Incubation Druid better than that? Not a +1/+1 counter deck. Kind of wild, actually. Dude, we have so many creatures. It's so cool. All right. In Simic, I just think that makes a lot of sense. Do I have a Crackling Counterpart? I don't even know that I do. So maybe that one has to take a break. We have so many ways available to make token copies of all these things that I think we're going to be fine. That's okay. We talked about like the Combine Chrysalis. Maybe it's not as good as I think it is. It does seem very slow and just kind of off. Hey, that brings us to 100. I think Ben will like this deck. It goes big. It's very powerful. And the more token copies you're making of things, the better it is. It would be nice if we had ways to make sure we got cards that make repeatable tokens like Nexus of Becoming and Helm of the Host and Extravagant Replication. But I mean, it's all pretty good, right? It's pretty good. All right. I think that builds our average, that takes our average Adrix and Nev token list. We added a lot more interaction. We moved a lot of the types of cards, the sorceries and artifacts and enchantments, into creature forms, so that making copies of them then really doubles down on their effects. So I'm a big fan of that. And the deck, I think, is ready to rumble. And if you see Ben playing this deck in the Worst Possible Commander show, in the Planar Championship for Strixhaven, you can be like, hey, I watched a video about that. CGB made a video about that. And you guys can spread the good word about that. And in the meantime, thanks for tuning in to these Covert Go Chill videos. I hope you guys have been well. I'm really excited for some of the things I've been working on in the daytime that will come out in the near future. And I think you're going to enjoy them a lot. All I'm going to say on that is Yu-Gi-Oh! Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. You're cool.